hydrangea time. I talk over the jungle of hydrangeas here today. So thanks for coming. I'm Trevor, our general manager here. We got, who's new to classes at the store? Got a couple? Nice, welcome. I see some grizzled veterans, we call them too, back for another dose of hydrangea class. We do this class today. I also do another hydrangea class midsummer. We're just getting kind of towards bloom, but we'll have another session. I'll do another one here. It's about 6 weeks away, I think, when we're kind of in peak summer. We can see everything flowering as well. So everybody's got the handout. You're more than welcome to read that. Some nice, gentle nighttime reading, about 4 pages long there. It's got a little bit of everything. Our website has some fabulous information. If you want to look at pictures, styles, heights, all that stuff is on our website as well. We have a hydrangea list. We like lists for everything. I make a list. So we have a lot of varieties of hydrangea. This is kind of overload. Between shade hydrangeas, sun hydrangeas, we'll talk a little bit about everything today. I'll be honest, doing this for about 30 years now, a lot of them are starting to look an awful lot alike. So this is probably the most bred plant these days for shrubs, and every year there's 5 new ones come out and everybody asks me for the 5 new ones. We do our best to get all we can, and there's still some things we're still waiting for, I'll mention as well, but we do continue to get hydrangeas in through the entire summer, okay? So we'll start with kind of one group, big leaf hydrangeas. So you call them mop heads, big leaves. We're thinking our big round flowers, right? Most people have one of those in their yard, I think, whether it's existing or they want to add one. This is one style of hydrangea. I'm going to start kind of by saying sun. I see a lot of people growing them in full sun. Who's got one in full sun right now? Because there's probably a couple. It's not the end of the world to get a little sunburn, but if we were going to pick an ideal situation for most all big leaf hydrangeas, we would be morning sun, afternoon shade, kind of a woodland garden, dappled light underneath trees. They're going to survive a lot better and perform a lot better if they don't get as much afternoon sun. I also don't mind, you know, shade all day, and they're on the west side of the house and we get a little bit of late sun. That's fine as well. Hydrangeas soak up a lot of water, and if you're in the sun, you're going to be watering a little extra. We'll put it that way. So keep that in mind as you're picking them. We can do big leaves, either mop head flowers, you can see a couple starting to bloom here, or lace caps. So we'll show you some lace cap flowers as well. You'll see some of those in more of an open center as we look at some pictures. You know, this is a common question with a lot of people. You know, come in here, we call it the wonder shrub. You know, what can I plant that blooms all year, I don't have to touch, and on and on and on. It doesn't exist. But hydrangea is an easy answer for one of these, because if we want something that's going to start blooming now and go all the way till frost in the fall, that's it. I mean, we have sun, we have shade. We'll talk about different kinds, but that is a great choice for a shrub that's going to continue to bloom over and over until we get frost. So very, very long blooming season. One big thing that people have noticed with mop heads, if we kind of start again with those, and lace caps, your flower color is all about the soil acidity. Does everyone kind of know when I say that? Almost everybody here has got acidic soil. I would be shocked in Western Washington if you didn't have either slightly acidic or very acidic soil. There's always going to be some shade of blue. You're going to find one in a pot here that's bloomed to pink. Well, it's in potting soil. If you want to keep it that color, we have to play with the soil pH. There's very, very easy things to do to manipulate that one little spot where your hydrangea is growing, and you can play mad scientist and get your pH meter out. And I want this, and I put 3 tablespoons down, and now it's periwinkle, and I want lavender. You can turn them any color you want. You'll see on the majority of our tags a huge color wheel, all the way from, some will be more red to purple, other ones more sky blue to pastel pink. But that's all on soil acidity. You can buy it blooming the color it is, and it'll probably change when you get it in your own soil. So if we talk about adjusting pH, it sounds funny, we're not trying to make any bombs, but you would buy potassium nitrate. So that's what we also use to kill our stumps. So be really careful how much you put down. But if I buy a little can of potassium nitrate, again, we can play mad scientist. Sprinkle 3-4 tablespoons around it, water it in. Okay, what color was that? Okay, let's go maybe to 6 tablespoons next year, because I want it even more red, not so pink. So you can really play with the color that way. And on the converse, If I want to get towards purple or a cobalt blue versus lighter blue, I can add acidity to that using something like aluminum sulfate. We have both those in the store, cheap little can. If you look at it real close, you'd be like, oh, there's the picture, and there's a picture of a red flowering hydrangea on the stump remover and a picture of the blue one on the aluminum sulfate. So either one of those will play with your pH. Make sure you follow the directions. I'll say that again though, because I've had some people like, oh, this is fertilizer. Dump the whole can around there, you're going to torch your plant. So this is not fertilizer. It's strictly just an amendment to adjust your pH, okay? Now, the other thing opposite of this, I bought a couple up. I think they're on the front. Well, this is one right here. I think the Blushing Bride's over there. But we can also do pure white. I don't know what it is the last few years, but a lot of people kind of going old school. And they're like, you know, I got red, I got blue, I got all this. Give me white, you know, because somehow white really pops, especially in the shade garden. So if we buy a white one, that is not going to change color. I want to make sure that's clear. When the flower is really old and aged, I might get just a tiny little hint of light blue in the center of the petals, or on the converse, I get a little bit of pink in there. But you're going to look at it, you're going to see lime green, white, white as we go through the summer, okay? Now, if we look at, again, lace cap or mop head flowers, everyone knows what I say, lace cap. I'm looking at that right there. So I've got that sterile center. It's a very pretty flower, but I open the flowers on the perimeter and I'd never open in the middle. Or again, mop head, depending on the variety I have, I can get some pretty good sized mop heads. There's some that are quite substantial in size. So we can do either one of those. A big thing probably since, say, 2000. This was the original. If you can see, I'll pull this up. Even says the original on the tag. But you can see that blue pot. That's Endless Summer. So I got one of these when they came out. I think it's about the year 2000, about 20 years ago. But that was the beginning of kind of a whole revolution in hydrangeas. Who's got old hydrangeas in their yard? Anybody got an old school one? So what happens if we prune back our really old one? We don't get much flower that next year, right? So hydrangea was always an old wood blooming plant, which means I can deadhead it, I can cut a bud down maybe, and I'll still grow up next year and get a flower. But if I cut it back, it's not going to kill it, but I would grow and get green leaves and bushy, but I got no bloom the next year. So all this new stuff now is new and old wood blooming. So it allows you as a gardener ultimate flexibility. You can cut it back if you want. I want a smaller plant. Sweet. If you got room and you want a giant specimen, don't prune it quite as much. So there's some good old school ones and there's a whole bunch of good new school. We carry a little bit of both here. The vast majority will probably be the newer varieties for us these days, but there's places for both in the garden. If you have room, there's probably nothing more impressive in a shady garden than a big old 6-7 foot by 7 foot hydrangea in bloom all summer. That's spectacular for a blooming shrub. I find most conversations with our customers, well, 6 or 7, maybe like 3 or 4. How's that sound? Okay, well then we get one of the new ones because I can still have all summer bloom, but now I have that flexibility to prune. So check if you're not sure. You know, out there right now, I would say I probably have 5 or 6 old school ones, and I probably have 30 of the new ones. So we have a lot of selection, but ask if you're not quite sure. But again, the vast majority of the collections we carry are going to be new and old wood blooming for flexibility, okay? Now, if we talk about care of these, we mentioned pruning real quick. If we kind of press the rewind button and head back towards coming out of winter, we had a pretty cold December this year. I'll speak for mine. Wood got nipped a little bit. You know, when we get down into single digits and teens, we're going to kill some wood on hydrangeas. They're super hardy. Maybe it died to the ground. You're going to come right off the root system, if that's even the case too. They'll start over again. If it's an old one, I'm sorry, no flower this year. But the new stuff will bloom a little bit later in summer, but still right back into flower. So when we go back to, like, say, March, you know, March 1st is kind of always my date. I look at my plant. Do I need to deadhead it? Do I need to cut it back a bit, tidy it, remove all the wood? That's the ideal time to prune hydrangeas. We don't want to do a lot of pruning going into winter. I think you're asking for a little bit more damage on the plants if we get cold. But if we tidy it up in March, off we go for the season, okay? I deadhead mine in the fall. I don't want the big dried flowers to collect snow and break any stems. So this is what I do at my house. I deadhead flowers, get rid of the brown. I'm kind of OCD, so I like tidy in the winter. It goes in the compost, and then I go back out in March and that's when I would cut my stems back to whatever height I want to start, and then off we go. You know, keep in mind, you know, hydrangea is a plant that grows up with stems and pairs of buds, right? I look at that stem and I've got 2 buds, 2 buds, 2 buds, all the way up. I can prune above any one of those. Say I had 1 flower last year, I've cut it down, now I get 2 shoots come up and I have double the flower the next year. Okay, so you'll get a little bushier plant like this, you know, it's gonna have 50 flowers on it here in the first season, okay? So do that in March. That's also the time we want to try to do some fertilizer. Now, we can put a lot of different food on hydrangeas. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I would use is always EP Stone Organics. That's what we sell here. I put rose and flower food on most all of mine. That is not going to change the pH of your soil. It's not going to turn you pink. I want to make sure that's clear. That's just an added fertilizer. You can put rhododendron food on it for all I care. That's going to be fine as well. But as long as we've got something with maybe nice little amount of nitrogen, a little bit extra phosphorus, potassium for extra bud and bloom, you're going to have maximum flower as we go through. I also don't mind sometimes in the summer you use a water soluble. Maybe you go out and water your baskets and this and that and the flowers. It's not going to hurt to throw a little bit of that around the plant once in a while. They'll soak up some through the foliage and also get a little extra kick from the fertilizer as well. Okay? So feeding, March minimum, I would always, if you're doing a granular, I go out and sprinkle this around the drip line of my plant, and then I mulch over it. Hydrangeas are heavy feeders and they love water, so mulch is always going to be a good thing for the summertime on hydrangeas. So feed it in March, maybe 1 more time at minimum in early summer. I think you'll have happy plants. If you really want to pump on the food, you know, probably every 6 weeks would be the most I would go. But I like kind of slow and steady, and I still get plenty of flower doing it the 2 big times a year. Okay? So one big thing you see, the last thing is water. You know, hydrangea, if you would teach Latin today, but hydro water. That's why they call them this. They love water. So this is not drought tolerant. This is not dry shade. If we have a hydrangea out in sun and shade, wherever it is, and it gets dry, it's going to let you know pretty quick. It lets us know here on a daily basis that we have to water them in pots. So make sure you watch the water a little bit in the summertime. The mulch will certainly help, but it's more established will help as well. But especially here this first year when they're new, keep them on the wet side, okay? Now if we look at a few of these big leaf ones, if you can see the pictures up there, we'll kind of show you a couple as examples. Again, I have a lot more than this out there. You can see the list posted out there. You can look at all the varieties we carry. But here's a couple of old school ones to start with. You know, Nico Blue's been around long before me. That's the big, huge 6, 7, 8 foot hydrangea you see in old established yards. Nice big blue flower, easy to grow, but still probably the standard for old school, big specimen, large hydrangea. That is an old wood bloomer. We cannot prune that hard or we will lose the flower. Same thing with glowing embers. That one typically around here, the people purchase it tend to add the potassium nitrate and keep that red. That's a really good red flower if you want to play with your pH. If we go acid soil, it's going to be more purple. So I won't have the blue, but I'll go more straight towards purple on that one. Okay? Another old wood bloomer. If we look at a lace cap old school, we have one called Red Wings out there. We have blue. I've got all kinds of old lace cap. Blue Bird is up here somewhere about to bloom. So if I want lace cap flower, larger size plant, those are ones that again we're going to have massive flowers on that bloom on old wood, and again we can play with the color with the pH as well. Now the next one there is really cool because this is kind of getting into the new school hydrangeas. So that's Miss Sayori. I have one up here with the purple foliage. You know, that's a new trait on hydrangeas. That's what I replaced mine with in my yard a number of years ago, because I like foliage and flower. I mean, everybody's got green, I think, all through their yard, but if we get a purple leafed one, we can do more sun on those. I want to make sure that's clear. That's one I would put in a little bit more sun to get the dark foliage color, but that to me is just going to add more interest as we go through the season. I'm going to have some nice foliage color and a spectacular bloom as well. So Miss Sayori is a compact repeat bloomer. And that would have big, huge mop head flowers, but if you can see in that picture, I'm going to have two-tone. So we're going to have red on white. So we're going to have those little two-tone flowers on there, which is really attractive. This is one, again, we could even do in a nice sized pot. You know, if you wanted a container type hydrangea, that would be an excellent choice as well. So Miss Sayori is a good example of kind of some of these new ones. You'll see a few up here that stick out that have that darker burgundy foliage on them that's going to add a little bit more interest. Now if we get into some funky flowers like pistachio, there's a little tie-dye for you. That's a fun plant. We will have pistachios here pretty quick, not quite yet. But that one, again, I can play with the color. That would be a picture of it in alkaline soil with that red eye. If we put it in our soil, we're going to have silvery blue mixed with the lime green and all the different colors in there as well. So that's another short one that repeat flowers, doesn't get very big. That's kind of a fun one here the last few years that we could do go quite a few. Spike is another new one with maybe a little bigger flower like Nico Blue, but again, a shorter plant that's going to flower on new wood, so a little bit easier to grow. Now this is a little different. Have anyone tried any of these everlasting hydrangeas? Anybody try one yet? So these are kind of fun. We got probably four colors of these in now. Just came this week. So this is the opposite. This is an old wood blooming hydrangea that just doesn't get very big. These were bred in the Netherlands for the floral industry. So they wanted massive flowers that lasted a long time, that had multiple colors in them. So I still have a shorter plant, maybe 3 or 4 feet is all, big thick stems, huge flower, but these are really fun. There's no repeat flower, which doesn't matter to me because these flowers last about 6 months. So it's going to open one color and then every single week fades into different colors, and you could look at a kaleidoscope of any of these and it's going to look like 4 different flowers over the 6 months. So they're kind of fun if you want something a little different. Big healthy plants, large flowers, but some really cool blooms on them. We've got white out there. I've got the crimson one out there. We have the blue one out there. We have a green one now that's lime green with whites and different colors going. So really a fun one, especially if you like cut flowers. It's a perfect one to bring in for a bouquet to last quite a while too. Okay, so that's Revolution. You can see the 2 different pictures there. I'm going to see blue, I'm going to see white, I'm going to see lime green, and that's going to just keep evolving as we go through the summer. We have something like the Bride. There's the white one. Again, I'm going to see lime green, different whites, different tones come through on that. And then you've got crimson. If we play with that soil a little bit and keep it on the alkaline side, I'm going to have the silvers, the reds, a little bit of white, a little bit of lime green again. But if you looked at the tags of those, they'll kind of show you 4 pictures. Like this is what it looks like when it opens, and then here's how it evolves through the summer into fall. They're really fun flowers, I think. Now if we get into the Endless Summer collection, so this is one, like I mentioned, probably the first hydrangeas that bloomed on new wood. I remember when these came out, I was running whites back in Linwood around 2000, and I looked at the lady like, yeah right, that just can't be. She's like, no, I'm serious, take one home and try it and tell me what you like. So I tried one the year before they came out and was like, wow. I cut it to the ground, next year it grew up, and here come the flowers. Okay, we got kind of a new style hydrangea to utilize here. So there's a number of plants in the Endless Summer collection. You'll see a few here in the pictures, but this is a good choice again if you want the flexibility of pruning and still getting flower on all these. So lace caps would be Twist and Shout. We have some of those out there. The brand new one this year is Pop Star, so I'll have that next week. They're a week late, I'm sorry. They wouldn't give them to me till the 1st of June, and I'm like, come on, I got class like 3 days before that. So we will have 50 of them in next week, and this is something we're going to go heavy on all summer. I think this is probably the plant of the year. Most of the Plant Geek shows I went to in 2022, this was the plant that got voted Plant of the Year by all of us Plant Geeks. So that is the heaviest blooming, dwarfest, smallest hydrangea I think I've ever seen. So this is like 2-3 feet tall is all. It's great for pots even. You can play with the color the same way, but you're going to have a massive amount of lace cap flowers on that. They spent a lot of time breeding that particular one, and I think that's going to replace quite a few of the other dwarf lace caps that most nurseries carry. So Pop Star, I know we're doing the horticulture show down in downtown Everett again in a couple weeks. We're sponsoring that. There'll be a bunch of pop star down there too. If you don't get one up here, we'll have them down at the show as well at our plant booth. So to make sure you check those out. Summer Crush was probably my favorite until Pop Star came out, but we do have some Summer Crush out there, and we have more of these coming all summer. Summer Crush, again, super dwarf, a lot of bloom on a small plant. You'll see even the little ones we have out there, like, wow, there's got to be 30 flower buds on there. That one probably, if I really want to go purple, and I want to go like raspberry red, that would be the difference with Summer Crush. I can really get a raspberry red color or go straight to purple and not so much of the blues and lavenders and pinks kind of in between, okay? And then Blushing Bride is the white. So that was the first ever white one, pure white, that came out with a little lime green in it as part of the Endless Summer. I think there's some really good other ones now, but that certainly is a worthwhile plant. We got a bunch of those out there too. Now, I'm a huge fan of Monrovia. I think they do one of the better jobs in the country growing plants. We do a lot of business with them. I've known them for over 30 years now. They've got a great collection as well. This kind of came out a couple years after the Endless Summer deal, but they keep adding more and more new selections to the Seaside Serenade collection. These are some really good plants, all repeat blooming, all dwarf, a lot of foliage color and some different attributes in there as well. But you'll see kind of a few here. I didn't put them all on. I think it's up to 8 now, but we got quite a few of them on the show here. So this is, I think, about the healthiest looking hydrangea on the property. That's Cape Lookout. That is a beautiful plant. And that is pure white. I want big, huge, massive white flower with a little tiny bit of lime green in it. I think that is the best repeat blooming white I've seen come out. We have some of those down there. Cape Hatteras, I didn't bring in here, but again, I'm going more towards that red side of it, towards purple, and not so much of the blue in there. That's going to be a little different color tone. You can see Cape May right there. If I like lace cap, I can play with the color on that again and go to steely blue and go all the way to pinky red. We can do that with those. The difference also with this is you'll see that name Serrata up there. So that's a mountain type hydrangea. So maybe I live up on the hills a little bit more. Maybe I'm a little colder and a little microclimate around here. Those are going to be hardier. Mountain hydrangeas are another zone hardier, and they get spectacular fall color. That's the bonus to me. If you know hydrangea, what do they do in the fall? They kind of turn yellow, slimy like snot, and you just kind of scrape them up off the ground and put them in the compost. This one you're going to look out in the yard and go, wow, I got burning bush color. You know, deep red, burgundy, really nice bright fall color, and the same great attributes as well, okay? Fire Island is the most popular one around here. I can tell you right now, that's the one I have in my yard too. That's gonna give me purplish foliage, especially with some sun on it. And I'm gonna have that super hot red edge on white or purple blue on white. I can have either color depending on my pH. But I think that is maybe as good as it gets in that collection for an interesting flower. Fire Island's one to check out for sure. Hamptons is pretty close to Fire Island, but I'm going to be more pink to the pastel side of that. I'm still going to get the burgundy foliage, maybe a little different shaped flower, but still great color and another good choice. Martha's Vineyard, we do get that one as well, and again, probably another choice if you want to go kind of raspberry red to purple and not so much of the colors in between. That's one that's a nice bright one and low, compact. If I want the smallest one in there, it's Newport. I brought one of these up. They're covered. I mean, look at that little plant there. It's probably got 50 flower buds on it already. If I was probably going to pick the smallest repeat blooming hydrangea in here, it's probably going to be Newport of any of the plants we carry. That one I've heard back from some customers as well. Super tidy, super low at 3 foot tall, very easy to take care of, and a lot of flower again. That's another one. We can go blue, purple, pink, red, depending on your pH. Sometimes they'll bloom pink in the pots here, but they're always going to turn blue when we get them in our native soil. And then Outer Banks I'm still waiting for, but that would be another one like our Cape May here, where we're going to have a little bit of that lace cap flower. Again, being able to play with the pH a little bit. Now the two brand new ones from last year, we have a few of both of these in, and I'll have more coming as well. I think these are totally different. My wife's name's Crystal, so I'm probably going to have one of these in my yard here pretty quick, the Crystal Cove. But Glacier Bay, you can't tell from that picture. If you went down and looked at them, it's an interesting color because I have black stem on that plant and a stark white lace cap flower. It's really pretty in the shade garden. That's really a nice contrast. Crystal Cove is one, again, I can play with the color, but it kind of had, again, big lace cap flowers, but more two-tone color. A little bit different, I think, than any of the other lace caps I see in here. And again, some burgundy leaves on that one. You'll see them even down there in the shade, still having a little bit of that burgundy color on top of the green, which adds the interest as well, okay? Now we get into some funky names. I'm not going to apologize for proven winners. I'm not sure how much they're paying their marketing people to name some of this stuff, but I always kind of chuckle when I see. I'm not sure what Let's Dance has to do with hydrangeas, but there's a whole series of Let's Dance hydrangeas. And they keep coming out. So there's quite a few out there. We have a few in, and we'll have more of these again as we go through summer. But we have Let's Dance Rave, we got Big Band, we got Diva, we got Rhythmic Blue. You could probably pluck a bunch more. Now there's one called Aha. There's a whole bunch of bad names for these. But the point is, proven winner, it's the same thing as Bailey has done with the Endless Summer, Monrovia has done with the Seaside Serenade. Proven winners takes these hydrangeas and, again, repeat blooming, small, tidy, compact plants that you don't have to worry about pruning, that perform very well in the garden. So all these would be other ones. The name might catch your, that a lot of times I'll buy plants by name sometimes if they're all equal, but it might catch your fancy. You're like, you know what, I'm gonna try one of those. Probably for them, some of the difference with those is probably larger flower. That's what proven winners has bred for. So strong stem, compact plant, but there's some pretty massive flowers on a few of those. They might be a little bigger bloom than some of the other series that we carry, but same idea, repeat flowering, no-brainer pruning, really easy to grow, and keep going in the garden, okay? Now, Serrata, you saw me mention here with the Cape May, but we do quite a bit of Serratas, and I would say typically if you're choosing a mountain hydrangea or Serrata, they're very close to Macrophylla, close cousins in evolution, but the difference, like I said before, a little bit hardier, excellent fall color would be one main difference to me. And maybe the shape. I would say typically with Serratas, we have kind of the big, maybe a little wider dome-shaped plant, not super tall, but maybe a little bit more width to it. Even if you look on the first one there, Bluebirds, an old school one's been around for decades, and we still stock it every year. That's a big hydrangea that only blooms on old wood. If you've got the room, that's a spectacular specimen plant. But I might end up with like 5 foot tall, but 7 or 8 foot wide, when I get an old one. It's not going to get super tall and flop open. It's just going to layer out and be pretty wide as it grows and establishes. Then we have, again, a bunch of new school ones. We looked at Cape May. Tough Stuff's a great name because they have a whole series of these from proven winners. Tough Stuff Red, Tiny Tough Stuff, Tough Stuff Aha. We got a bunch of Tough Stuff out there. And it's maybe not as important for us in our little area in Western Washington, but maybe I'm east of the mountains, maybe I'm a little colder climate. That's going to let me grow a hydrangea maybe where I could not before, doing something with Serrata in it, okay? Now the new one that I was psyched about, I got one up here somewhere blooming. There you go, Pink Dynamo in the front there. So this is from a different breeder, Bloomin' Easy. We got a lot of these in too, but it kind of, again, matched the nice lace cap flower. It's Serrata with great fall color, but super dark foliage. If you look at that one, I'm going to have that purpley cast leaf on it, especially in spring, and then I'm going to turn bright red for my fall too. So repeat blooming, super compact, easy to grow, but something might offer me a little bit more foliage color as well. Now if we get into the next group here, Hydrangea arborescens. So these are the smooth hydrangeas. Maybe we took a quick trip to the Midwest and we're hanging out in like Iowa, the Plain States. but we need something that's more heat tolerant, maybe a little more drought tolerant, and something I can clip even into a hedge. This is a real common thing I see maybe in other parts of the country. They work great here too, but I would put this in hot sun. This is the opposite of our the ones we just discussed. I want full sun on these, or at least half a day sun. I'm going to have massive white flowers. You'll see some other colors now available, but traditionally this was a huge white mop head type flower on these smooth hydrangeas. But something we can prune very easily, hedge it, make it into a shrub, use it as a specimen. It's got some pretty good uses around here. And now that we're probably not stuck with a 8-foot by 8-foot plant, there's a lot of great dwarf ones. Certainly something to consider. So Limetta, Wee White will give me the white. Incredible's got a perfect name. That's probably the biggest flower I've ever seen on any hydrangea, period. That is a massive white flower when you get those old. We've got ruby colored ones. You can do lime colored ones now. There's quite a good selection out of this kind of Invincible series, they call it, for improving winter. So we've got some choices on colors. But again, big thing with these, sun. We don't want to do these in shade. This would be the opposite for full sun. Now I put oak leaf hydrangeas on here. Does anyone have an oak leaf hydrangea? We got a couple. You know, to me, that's a great shrub. You know, we always talk about, we kind of joked about the wonder shrub earlier. You know, most people I've talked to try to help is getting something that has interest in multiple seasons. You know, it's got great summer flower. It's got cool fall color. This one even adds really cool kind of peely bark in the wintertime. And on a typical winter, sometimes we don't even lose all our leaves on oak leaf hydrangeas, so it would offer you some foliage and some color over the winter months as well. These bloom on old wood, so we have to be a little more careful on how far we cut them down, but that's a really cool foliage. I have one up here. We're really low on those. I'll have more coming in next week as well. But this is one you would have dwarf size, not super big. Most of the time these will be like 4-foot-ish tall, some a little shorter than that even. But I would always open white. This is not one we play with the color. Should have said that with the last one too. Arborescens, we don't play with the color on those. Same with oak leaf. You buy it, it's white, it turns pink, it turns red as we go through the summer toward frost. That's it. We're not turning it blue, we're not playing with the pH. It's just gonna grow just like it is, okay? So oak leaf might be one. You know, if we were doing this class down the south, I think they call this a weed down in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia area. This would be like our blackberries up here. Grows everywhere. Up here, it's a cool plant. It's not invasive. It's not going to go crazy. They tend to sprawl out, give you some good spread again a little bit, but very prunable. And I think, again, adds multiple seasons of interest with the color in the fall, the nice summer bloom, and great cool wood peely wood in the wintertime. Now, I brought a lot of panicle hydrangeas up. Who's got a P? We call it PG. Sounds more fun than panicle. Who's got a PG hydrangea? This is one I think everybody should have. I got a couple in my yard. In fact, I'm always playing mad scientist, so my old one got dug out, and I'm about ready to replace it with a new one so I can try it out and report back next year how it did. So PGs is one we want sun. You know, this is an easy choice. If I want sun and I don't want to maybe worry as much about the watering on it, this is the superior type of hydrangea to have in full sun. I'll tell you, this is probably the one to me. They're starting to wash together. There's probably 15, 18 different PG hydrangeas out there, and if you set out 18 different flowers, I might even have a tough time picking a couple of them out because they're getting awful close from different sources. So a lot of options of these for the gardener. This is another one. They're just starting to bud right now. Mine's just got little tiny buds coming out the top, and it's going to open up here and repeat flower all the way till frost. This is another style that we don't mess with the color. This is always going to be white, lime green, white when it opens, and then light pink, dark pink, red towards we get the end of the season again. Now that's probably the choice that you're going to consider if you're back there looking for one of these, is how fast do you want pink and red, and how much of that do you want? Because the flower shape's a little different, and the amount of color that will come in will vary from variety to variety. So I'm not a huge pink fan, I'm always honest with that. So I tend to shy towards, I want white as long as I can. You know, maybe I go to red a little quicker, not so much pink. You may like pink better, sweet. Let's get you a Pinky Winky or one of the fun named ones that's more pink and not so much white or red. But you'll see as we look through the pictures, there's a lot of options on these for both flower shape and growth size. Now, these are new wood bloomers, all of them. There's no exception to PG. So to me, this is a no-brainer for the gardener. You can do whatever you want to it. The more you prune it, the more flower you get the next year. How's that for an easy answer? Because if I leave it open, I get long stems and I'm going to have one big bloom here and there. If you shear them back into a shrub, you're going to have it covered in flowers. You'll see our little young plants out there will have, again, 20, 30 flowers on a little 2-gallon plant the first season. So very heavy blooming, very easy to prune because they all bloom on new wood, okay? Now, dwarf ones, large ones, you can look at the tags. We can probably go anywhere from like 3 feet to 7 or 8 feet if I want a big old specimen one in the sun garden, okay? And I'll add this. You can see the only 2 tallest things. I brought 2 of them in here. It's like, what the heck is that doing in here? It's a tree. So this is a really common question I've gotten over my 30 years is you come in here as a customer, you know, I'm looking for something for my yard. We play 20 questions and it's like, well, I need a tree. Well, how big do you want the tree to get? I don't know, 8 feet. Okay, well, that's not really a tree. It's probably more like a large shrub. But I think what you want is a tree look in a shrub, right? So that's not going to be a lot of choices around here. Maybe Rose of Sharon is one. PG Hydrangea to me is the no-brainer because I want a small summer blooming tree that I can add to my landscape. It's not going to get 15, 20 feet tall. It's not going to shade my whole garden. And I got flowers the entire summer. So to me, that's a perfect purchase for a lot of gardeners. Like, hey, I just want a small little tidy 6-8 foot tree that I can get flowers on all summer and tidy and easy. I can prune it back if I want. Sweet, get a PG grafted up on a tree because we are getting more and more of those in. We got a bunch back there and more coming all summer. That's been a really popular choice for a lot of our local gardeners here the last couple summers, okay? Now, if we look at some choices here, so this is, I'm trying to think how many ones have lime in it now. Little Lime, Lime Light, Lime Light Prime, Little Lime Punch. There's way too many. So Limelight is the original. That was one that if you like, that's what I had Little Lime in my yard because I liked the lime green, then the white, then maybe a little pink as we went through the summer, okay? So Little Lime is the dwarf version. Limelight is the specimen. I want 7 foot, get a Limelight. I want 3 or 4 feet, get a Little Lime. There's an easy choice for you. So they'll turn pink, but you'll have maybe the lime white color a little bit longer into the summer, okay? Little Lime Punch was brand new next year. You're the opposite of me. I want my pink and red quick. I don't want white. I want some color. Sweet. Get Little Lime Punch. That's a nice dwarf. That's going to give me the pinks and the reds a little faster versus the lime green white a little bit longer. Limelight Prime came out last year as well. The only difference with that, it's the same exact thing as Limelight, a taller specimen style panicle hydrangea. But the difference with that is, you know, if I'm a breeder and I'm growing thousands of things, I notice attributes like, wow, that's got really thick stems. Wow, that flower's a little bigger. Maybe I can pull it aside, take some cuttings, do some cloning, and I've got a consistent new variety. So that was selected out by proven winners for a thicker stem and a little bit larger flower. So if you want the improved Limelight, we'll call it. I think improved is probably boring. That's what they call it, Limelight Prime, right? Now you can see maybe on a couple of those, do you see how dense that is? Those cones, those panicles, very dense. I don't see into them. So I can go that route, or I can go the route of something like Early Evolution or quite a few others, where I can actually see the individual flowers and see through the cone a little bit more. So again, depending on what your taste is, you've got some options as far as those style of flowers. So Early Evolution we'll have again next week. It wasn't quite ready yet, but that's the first one to bloom. So if I'm going for the first flower to open every year, it's always going to be Early Evolution. That's an easy one. Some of the new ones like Tidbit, so we can probably guess with that. A little bit tidier, a little bit smaller. We carry Firelight. Now we have Firelight Tidbit. So if you want the little miniature version, we've got that out there as well. Pinky Winky always makes me smile. That's one of a funny name. But Pinky Winky is one of the first ones out of proven winners. And again, you can see a little bit more open. That's a huge flower. But you get the right day in the summer. It doesn't look like that all summer. But you can almost see the dark pink, light pink, white, kind of the three stripes going through the flowers. Really pretty over the summer. Eventually, we turn all to a dark pink, light red as we get towards fall. Bobo's the one. I'm trying to choose my new one. It's either going to be Bobo or Pufferfish. I can't decide. I'll probably have to get Pufferfish because my 8-year-old will like that at home. So Bobo, Pufferfish, I would have white, and I'm not going to do the pink thing nearly as much until late in the summer. Okay, and that's another dwarf. Now, I don't have quite that little boy, so we go berry white. So berry white came out. That's an interesting color. That's a huge flower. That one we do trees and shrubs. That's a big specimen grower from First Editions at Bailey Nurseries. That's one we sell quite a bit of here as well if you're looking for a little larger one. Probably the two that we sell the most from Bailey's, Vanilla Strawberry, says it all. You got Vanilla Strawberry. That's a big old ice cream cone. That's another big flower from Bailey Nurseries. We have some of those out there. Strawberry Sundae would be the smaller version of that. So I want maybe a little different shade of pink, but now I want something more like 4, maybe 5 foot versus 6, 7, 8 foot tall on some of the tall ones, okay? And then Little Hottie, that one came out, I think it was last year we finally got that, and they finally released it. Maybe it was the fall before, but Little Hottie is another dwarf one. So massive amount of flowers, super tight, large panicle cones on those, but again, a much tidier plant. We've got some Little Hottie out there as well. Now I put this in intentionally to kind of show you, one of my original favorites when these came out was Diamond Rouge, because that literally would be like a picture in June and a picture in September. Same exact plant. That's the color change in a nutshell. So when it opens, what do I see? White, tiny little hint of pink in it. By the time I get to fall, that one turns the most red of all of them. So if you like red, go for Diamond Rouge. That's another one we have out there ready to go. And then there's my last two new ones. There's my Pufferfish. I might have to try that one. So Pufferfish, and then we go hippie style with the Lava Lamp Flare. That one's new this year too. We got some of those coming. That one, to me, Pinky Winky, looks like 3 or 4 other ones, but it's got a new name, so we'll call it Lava Lamp Flare. And then there's your tree. I found these online. Probably pillaged them from somebody's house that I didn't need to pillage them from, but they'll never know. But that is essentially what I'm talking about. You got a small garden, even a huge container you could grow them in, but I want a tree that blooms all summer that isn't really a tree. I don't need to get 15, 20 feet tall. I just want like 8 or 10 feet. Look at the panicle trees. I think that's a great choice for a lot of modern gardeners. Now the last couple I'll mention here before we kick you loose, or we'll do some questions. There's a lot of hydrangeas out there in the world, and I'm going to show you a couple here that may not be for everybody. I have a couple of these at my house that aren't really shrubs, but vines. So climbing hydrangea is a pretty useful plant. You'll see on the list there, especially for growing. If you've got some for shade, some for sun, but that's a big plant. If you want to cover something, these are the plants that will actually cling to wood, to brick, to concrete. I've had some people with like retaining walls, that were like, I just want to cover it. I don't want to see it. Sweet, plant that in there. It'll root itself right into the concrete or a wood fence. Keep it off the siding of your house. That's what I worry about at mine. But it'll attach itself to anything and actually root and anchor. So I could grow the Petiolaris, the green one there. That's what we would call American climbing hydrangea. I brought one of them in. You'll see in the corner over here. So that's got green leaves, big white lace cap flower. When it flowers, turns a pretty yellow fall color. That has really cool peely bark on it. Looks pretty fun in the wintertime as well. But I could plant one of those. If I got patience and don't prune it, it'd probably cover 60, 80 feet, down the road. That's a big plant. Ground cover, it'll run, it'll grow, it'll cling to anything. So prune it for sure. I prune mine a couple times a year to keep it kind of tidy. But that's one we could do in sun or shade. You'll see on the other side there, and I've got one in front, is the variegated one. That's the one I have in my yard because I love foliage color. Same white lace cap flower, bright foliage. That one we would want to give a little bit of afternoon shade to be honest with you. I tried mine, trying to break nature and put it in the sun, and it gets a little tired in August. But now that I've got it over on the shadier side of the house with afternoon shade, it's a great foliage plant. Same cooly, peely bark, same white lace cap flower, but some beautiful variegated leaves if you like those. You don't have to let it, grow on a fence, a house, your car. You don't have to let it get that crazy. I got a big metal 6 foot tall obelisk. I like some metal art, so I just found something I liked, plopped it in the ground, planted it in the middle of it, and I let it kind of pop out of the grid and the little obelisk here and there. It's a really cool, almost looks like a bonsai a little bit, but it's a nice little statement piece. You don't have to let it go crazy. You can always prune them. Certainly the variegated one is a little tamer than the green one, I'll say that. On the other side is evergreen climbing hydrangeas. Now I'm going to start by saying I'm sorry I wasn't even going to include this, but I feel I should tell you about them. We don't have any of these around. They're really hard to find. We had a bunch last year. I'm hoping at some point this summer I'll find some more of them. But this is kind of one of those plants on the hardy line. If you had one of those in your yard last winter, probably got nipped a little bit. These are all zone 7, kind of right on our frost line here. We have a big one out in our own garden here at the nursery. Steve, years ago, Mr. Steve, the whistling gardener, planted at the base of an old cherry tree. So it's doing exactly what I said. It's growing into the bark, and it's climbed about 20 feet up into the cherry tree, which is pretty cool. You can go look at it over on the corner of the garden over here by the driveway. It's sheltered, so his didn't really get nipped this winter. White lace cap flower. It is an attractive foliage, but just keep in mind, closer in to the water, you're probably okay. The farther we head up into the hills, especially when they're young, you're taking a chance of a little bit of winter damage if we get a cold one. This one always makes me schizophragma. Sounds like a contagious mental disorder of some kind. But these are Japanese or Asian style climbing hydrangeas. So I have one of them up here in the front of the vines, but really pretty foliage. And again, a really nice lace cap flower. This is another one. If I have a shadier garden, morning sun, afternoon shade, or pure shade, this one might be a great vine choice for you to add a little bit of foliage and some flower in the summer. This is another one. We have a bunch of these growing on the cedar fence to the yard over here. If you walk in our shade area, you would see it clinging to all the wood on all the cedar over there, and growing quite nicely. So another one that we could eat up. Moonlight is going to give me that variegated leaf, which in the shade's a really nice color, would brighten up a little corner of the shade. Red Rhapsody I'll have again here pretty quick. That one wasn't quite ready yet. I would have some red on the new foliage especially, which again would add a little bit of interest in the shade garden. Now the last one here is Hydrangea aspera. Again, we have a monster down in the garden over here. I could show you after class. It's probably 12 feet tall. That's a big, huge specimen type hydrangea from Asia. This has got big leaves. They almost feel like felt. An interesting kind of flower, a little bit different than anything else we've honestly talked about with hydrangea. I put Plum Passion on there. We'll have them here at some point. Monrovia will have them ready again. This is a Dan Hinckley plant, if you know him around here, but they've been really hard to get the last couple years. This again is a little less hardy. You'd be there at that zone 7, and I know on the ones in my yard I've had got nipped a little bit in winters, had to start over again from the root system. But I don't even care if that one blooms, to be honest with you. I would buy it just for the foliage. This is one we would have purplish, huge leaves. Again, for the shade garden, would add some nice color, something a little different than we typically have. So Plum Passion would be a purple option. We have Velosa is the one we have in ours, and that one's a little younger. Ours is literally like a tree. You would walk underneath it down there. If you looked up, you'd be like, oh wow, there it is. Because it is a big, tall specimen style hydrangea with the monster foliage that's nice velvety, and then you'd have the flowers on there as well. Okay. So you can always access, this information on our website. We record this doing that right now. Nobody will be on video except for me. But we record this. It'll be up on YouTube. If you weren't bored in this 45 minutes here, you can go back and watch it again, right? But it'll be up on Monday. We have a lot of people like to sit and drink coffee in their pajamas and watch the classes and not come down here, which is fine. This kind of started with the pandemic when we couldn't go live classes anymore. So it's nice when we have a huge crowd. This is a nice crowd today because I think a lot of people go back and watch it whenever they want to watch it that way. So it is recorded. The handout's on our website. You'll find pictures of most everything and stuff I didn't even show you today. We've got pictures of most all of them on there with good information and the actual list, A to Z, of everything by category that we carry as well. So hopefully that wasn't too much hydrangea overload. We got some questions. I got to ask, Dwayne, is Dwayne here? There he goes. He sent me the gold winner here. I got the question from him before class. So you're probably good on feeding, right?
Well,
you asked me about feeding.
No, we aren't. We haven't fed ours at all.
Okay.
So
get some BB Stone rose and flower food and get some of that down on there right away, and you a little bit of compost, or if you do bark.
Yeah, we got
one of those two. Get them mulch real heavy. The one you moved, someone's going to ask me, when do you transplant? We always transplant in the winter. Sometimes we have to move some stuff during the growing season as an emergency. If it was me, I'd go straight in there and buy a bottle. We have what's called a root stimulator, root and grow in there in a liquid bottle. You got to pour that down around that edge of that plant probably every couple weeks here for a few times if you can, to try to get that root system back to the way it was, and hopefully it won't crash on you.
Would you put it in a container for the?
Is it out of the ground right now?
It's been out of the ground. It got out of the ground last Saturday by accident.
Okay.
We put it in a 5-gallon bucket with water. It looked good for 2 days. We put it in the ground and it just went.
Yeah. You probably got too much roots when we cut it. I hope it'll bounce back. Plants are pretty resilient, but I would either get it in a bigger bucket with more soil and start adding that root stimulator, or find somewhere to get it in the ground right away and do the same thing. You're probably going to water that thing like every other day here for the next 3 months. I hate to tell you.
Well, we have a picture if we don't embarrass ourselves.
Well, we can look at it after class here. So,
okay.
Do you want it in soil in a pot or in water?
Oh, soil for sure. If it got bare rooted, that's probably why it's struggling. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There wasn't any dirt left.
I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed for you, but that's probably. I hope it turns out better, and I think it will.
Yeah.
All right, we got some more questions. Yes, go ahead.
When you plant the hydrangea, what do you add to the soil?
So that's a great set. When you plant a hydrangea, what should you add in there? I would never complain about compost. So if you're going to go buy something, I would buy planting compost. I dig a huge hole, mix that about 1/3 compost, 2/3 native soil. Now I would add this. If you're going for blue or purple, help yourself get there without adding more amendment all the time. I would buy the acid planting mix out there because that's got built-in sulfur, more acidic. We would use it for rhodies, azaleas, camellias, and in this case, hydrangeas. So if you were going for blue or purple, use that instead of compost. Now you're just going to make it a little more acidic right there when we plant it. Yeah, we have another one?
If the ones that are got pink or red in their name,
Yep.
do you still need to add the potassium stuff to it, or is it naturally just going to be that?
Yeah, well, there's only a couple that aren't going to turn color. I think you're going to find out this year, without listing them all off. I mentioned a couple during the slideshow that won't turn blue. If they're red, they're red. There's a couple out there, like Tough Stuff Red is another one we looked at, that's going to stay that color and not change. But if you look at the tag's going to tell you everything, because it's going to tell you on there. A lot of times there'll be 2 pictures. This is what it's going to look like. That's what it's going to look like. And I like the Endless Summer. If you look at their tag, there's a color bar. So I could literally go from here all the way to there, depending on what my soil pH is. Will give you a nice range. Yeah. Yes.
I just realized that one of my hydrangeas that I thought I had problems with was a PG hydrangea.
Okay.
So it inadvertently got damaged a year ago, and so I cut out some of the damaged wood. Well, now all of a sudden it's coming in beautifully.
Yeah.
So my question is, do I need to really cut it back every year? Or
Well, that's probably going to be more to your taste. I cut mine every year because I don't want this. I
right.
want this.
Okay.
So it's all up to you, because that's why. I mean, like I said it when we were talking. I love PJ hydrangea because to me it's a no-brainer. I mean, you can prune it, you can not prune it, do whatever you want, but it's the same thing. I have a stem up that had one huge flower on it last year. Even if I just cut it down to bud, now I got 2 stems and double the flower. So when you look at a PG in bloom, you don't even see the leaves because they'll bloom so heavy if they're pruned a little bit.
Perfect. That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. Yes.
I had a couple, well, I rescued a couple of plants. It was all
We like
dead
plant
wood.
rescue.
It was all dead wood.
Okay.
They were about this high,
Okay.
planted them. Do you know if it was going to grow on old wood or?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's coming up with new
New growth. Yeah.
What do I do with that? Can I cut that dead
Oh,
wood?
cut all the dead wood out for sure. Yeah. And you know, honestly, everyone kind of heard what she asked. She was kind of wondering if you got dead wood, because that was mine this year. We got cold enough in December. I know I had 7 at my house in Everett 2 different times, early December and late, that I killed some wood back. So okay, I just had to go back a little farther to prune. Maybe I don't have a flower in June, but now it's July. It just postpones it just a little bit. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Yes.
I have a question about, I have a cute winky hydrangea tree.
Mm-hmm.
How aggressively do you recommend cutting it back?
Oh, you could cut the same thing as the shrub. You could cut those back quite a bit. I mean, any pair of buds. If it was me, especially because you probably don't want it to get huge, I would always go to the last pair on all the stems. You're going to have more of a compact, full plant with, again, maximum flower that way. And you can always dig into the middle and get the interior wood out of there too. Yep. Yep. We got a few. Nobody's going to ask you about florist hydrangeas or anything else today? Yes.
Pop star, was that full sun or not?
Full sun, Pop Star, again, I don't mind the half and half. I would really try to talk you into morning sun, afternoon shade. I'm not saying you can't grow in the sun, but I think you're probably going to get, anybody who's got hydrangeas in the sun probably know what I mean. You get kind of reddish color. It's sunburn is what it is in the summer. We get to August. This year, the weather's been absolutely incredible in May. Well, it might happen a little earlier this year, but our typical summer after the 4th of July, it's usually late July, August, you start to get a little tired on some of those ones that are getting a little too much sun.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
What's the life expectancy of a hydrangea?
Well, they should last forever. I mean, again, I think she brought up a good point trying to figure out, like, a lot of people ask, like, well, I don't know, what do I have? I bought a house. Is it old? Is it new? There's only one way to find out, and that's prune it back and see what happens. If you skip flower the next year, it's like, all right, I got an old one. I'm going to prune it a little lighter. I'm going to do a little slower, but you can cut. It should last honestly forever. Yeah, I mean, unless something gets in. Not a lot of bugs, not a lot of disease. It's usually something cultural if hydrangeas struggling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Got more? So if you go out, after class, so it starts today. We do this the pandemic, which used to be just the class day, but you go all the way till next weekend. All the hydrangeas out there 20% off. So we got quite a bit in this week. There are some ones I'm still waiting for. We keep a wish list here. I don't know that a lot of nurseries do this anymore, but I think it helps you guys and it helps us too. We will call you when it comes in. And if I see hydrangeas on from you guys from the class today, when you come to get your hydrangea, when it shows up, I'll tell her to give you the 20% as well at the register. So if there's one like Pop Star, some of the ones I mentioned were coming in here next week or the coming weeks, leave us your name. We'll call you right when they come in. You got first crack at them kind of thing, and we'll do the class discount on those as well. So there's a really good amount, I would say, of PGs out there. I don't know there's many that we're still waiting for. There's a few ones in the shade area that I wish were ready this week, but they're just not quite going to let me have them until the 1st of June. So there's a couple still coming in, but there is a massive selection. We got quite a bit in this week, and it'll be this way the entire summer. Like I said at the beginning, there's not many shrubs that we can plant and get flower power on the entire summer till fall. Today's hydrangea class, tomorrow's the rose class, and that's the same kind of idea. We plant good roses and take care of them. That's what's going to give me flower and fragrance from now all the way till we get way into the fall, early winter time. So two great choices kind of on this weekend. Okay. So thanks for coming. I enjoyed the class, and we'll see you. Hopefully, we'll see you again for roses tomorrow.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.